Leave that vertex, and I want to delete everything to the left of it. So C. Okay, I've got everything selected that I want. X, vertices, great. Now, I want you to go in and do what we were doing before. Pick the center vertex. Pick these next two and face. If you switch over to edges, it's easier. Pick the next edge, shift, right mouse click, edge, face, edge, edge, face, and so on. Do that until you've got all of these selected and then come back. Okay, I'm just finishing up here. Now, here's a little different. Well, no, not really here. This one's not, but this one is. So face, face, so face, shift, face, face, F. Okay, cool. Now, I realize that we no longer really need the reference circle, so I'm going to tab out of this. I'm going to pick this circle that's sitting here and just X, delete it. I don't need it. We could always make another if we had to. So what is this that we have made? I'm going to go to Z so that you can see it. It's solid. We've got 1/4. It's perfectly flat, right? But it's got that waffle texture along the outside. The goal is to make a full circle out of this. So if we go to 7, right? Add a mirror modifier. Actually, before we do that, we can do one of two things. We can either rotate this exactly, what did I say, 0.8 degrees. Let's see what happens. Rotate 0.8. That's as close, I guess, as we're going to get to perfectly straight with this. Maybe off by like a fraction here. So I'm going to, what is that, Control A, right? Location, Control A, rotation, Control A, scale, mirror. It's still not perfect. I'm going to rotate in as close as I can get to where these 2 points should meet. And I'm going to rotate Z. Whoops, there. I don't want that then. No, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to come in here. All right, this is as close as I can get. And we want this edge right here butting right on our axis. So rotate Z. All right, that's, I think, as good as that's going to get. All right, so if we zoom out, oh, there's our reference segment. I don't need that reference segment anymore either. Delete. All right. So now this should be as perfectly aligned as we're going to get on our axes. So I'm going to do that same thing. Control A, location. Oops. Control A, rotation. Control A, scale. Add modifier, mirror. Now that's flipping perfect. I wonder what happens if we turn on clipping. Now, let's go in and make sure that these meet. Looks like they do. All right, so I'm going to apply our mirrored object. So now we've got half, if you hit Z, we've got half of our circle, right? I want to add a mirror modifier. And I want to make it in the Y direction this time. Turn on clipping, of course. Apply. All right. I'm going to tab into it, select everything, remove doubles. And just for the heck of it, normals, recalculate outside. All right. So now this is actually fairly dense. But we're not done yet. We're going to go to 1, E, and it's already defaulted to go up in the Z direction. Great. If I go to solid, select all of our verts, just to be sure, remove doubles, there are none. Normals, recalculate outside, and it did make a change. And of course we want this to be tab out, and I want it to be smooth shaded. Now, we're going to need a little modifier here. Edge split. I want to make this angulation greater. We're going to say 90 degrees. I only want it to make it 60. There we go. I only really want it to split the top and the bottom. Now, let's apply that. Rotate 90. If I do what we did before, I'm going to shift and click our lower first layer, right? Going to grab some camera, grab X, center that up and quick render it. Be right back when this is done. Okay, as you can see with our quick render, it doesn't look bad, but with our primitive lighting, it also doesn't look great. And it looks really similar to what we did with just cubes, right? But if you ever do a close-up render and you want to see that these are smooth-edged objects, then this is the only way to go, because we've actually made all the curves and we've created a 3D solid object. All right, so we've got to kind of finish up. Whoops, I don't need that. All right, we're going to finish up here. I'm going to get rid of that first lower layer. 1, and select this object, and just to make it match, I'm going to dark hull gray, grab X, Z, scale, whoops, let's try this, I'm sorry, Shift Alt Control C, I should have origin to geometry, it should put it right in the middle. I should grab this, put it somewhere near the middle, scale this down. Okay. So now I'm going to include these Z. Now I don't need two of these objects in the same space at the same time, so I'm going to take my which one are you, my friend? You're my square one? Nope. Here's my square one. Okay. I'm going to take my square one and I'm going to move. I'm just going to ignore that. I'm going to take away the second layer. Ta-da! And we're left with our really super dense one. Go to the side, Z, deselect the object, and you know what? That doesn't look bad. You're going to get a moire effect because in real time it's trying to render this out just so it can show you what's going on. But and if you zoom in, you can see that it's that beautiful, smooth object. And no matter which one you've chosen, the next steps are going to be the same. So if I go back to here, we no longer need the, actually, where was that? Here, yeah. I no longer need this empty. So X, empty, the empty is gone. You can see that there's no dot in there anymore. It's the whole thing is just empty. So this is where we've got our nice smooth textured object. I'm going to move that to the third layer. So now we've got our square, our object with that we made with the cubes, with the square edges here in the second layer, and we've got our smooth edged object in the third, and of course everything else is in the first. So it doesn't matter which we go with. Actually, right now, what the heck, I'm going to go to layer 4, which is completely clean, because I want to see this outline. So first, let's go here. We can see our center. I'm going to Shift S, cursor to selected. So our 3D cursor is right in the middle of this. I'm going to go to my fourth layer again. Okay, great. So Shift A, and we're going to add, instead of a mesh, we're going to add a curve, one of our friends, the Bezier curves. All right. If you go to 7, you can actually see the wavy structure of the thing. I'm going to go to 3. I'm going to, whoops. Why is that? Sorry. Not exactly sure why this is. There we go. 3. All right, cool. I'm going to rotate this -90. Go to 1 and rotate. Okay, we've actually kind of got it where we want it, but I'm going to go over here and modify this curve thing has now appeared, right? And you get 12 segments in its normal preview. I'm going to up that to at least 100 and 100. Now, this may make Blender respond really slowly. I'm going to scale this down, especially if you do 200. But I'm going to tab into this. I'm going to grab this end by right mouse clicking on that center dot, grab and move this till it's just above our area of interest. This one is already pretty much just below our area of interest, but I'm going to kind of make it line up. Well, I should have made this line up too. Grab and line up. Okay, great. I'm going to grab a side, one of the edges on the side, and I'm going to grab this and move it down so it's actually curving kind of along the way that we want. And grab this edge and move it here so that this one is also curving kind of how we want. And then what we can do is we can grab these and make some adjustments. Right? Actually, you can get this almost right on the money if you want. And I'll show you a little trick later on. All right, so grab and just adjust these until our curve matches what Alan has drawn here. All right, pretty cool. Tab out, and you'll notice that our curve is pretty darn close to what Alan has drawn here. So grab, just make a tiny little change here. That's good enough for me. All right, tab. I'm going to go to Object, Convert to Mesh from Curve. So now if I was to tab into that and select it and get out of edges and go to vertices, you can see how many verts. That's actually going to be fairly smooth and clean. Now I'm going to pick the lowest vert down here. I'm going to E, Z, and just move it down. E, Z, and move this one up. Okay, now I'm going to tab, select all of them, and then E, X, and we're making a big object, but it's only a line. If I go to 7, you'll notice it's just a plane. So I'm going to select all the verts, right? 7. I'm going to E, Y, and just make an object that's larger than the warp engines itself. Okay? If I tab out, I've now got this weird looking object. We're going to use this as a Boolean object. I'm going to hit smooth on here, and then we can always throw in an edge split, but you know what, it's just not needed at the moment. All right, so now we have an object that we're going to use for difference. And again, it doesn't matter which of these you made. So I'm going to pick, this is the one with that we made out of squares, and I'm going, so that's my layer 2 and my layer 4. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that this, so grab Y, fully intersects with our warp cap here. So I'm going to pick the warp cap. I'm going to go to Boolean, difference, and we're going to pick our weird looking object here and apply. Now I'm going to get rid of layer 4 for now, just for now, and we are left with this, which we would have to do some cleanup on, right? But we've got the shape that we want. What we would have to do is we would have to go in and we would have to correct a lot of this geometry, which is fine. You could quite simply delete all these faces, right? If I grab all these faces here, X faces, and then we'd be left with edges and verts, and essentially all you'd have to do is clean up. You'd have to go in, you'd have to make them all match. Let's go to vertices, A, select them all, remove doubles, there are none, recalculate outside, almost. Okay, great. And if you go to 1, Z, deselect them all, right? All you'd have to do, actually we could even hide some of this stuff. You could work on the back, you could work on the front. You'd have to do them separately, so if you wanted to hide some of this, you could pick that, H to hide, and now you've only got these to deal with. And what I would do is I would run in and make sure that there are, well, that's interesting. I'd get rid of a lot of these, so I hit this vert and this vert, X, and dissolve vertices, right? Didn't work perfectly, but you could grab these 4 and make a face. The unfortunate thing is, well, you could, I guess, you could do, say, half. Since this is perfectly lined up, you could fix half of these and then mirror it and reconstruct the whole thing, but I wouldn't want to do that. It's easier just to fix all of these individual things. Control 3. Yeah, see, here's the one that we fixed. So again, X, dissolve vert, yeah. I don't know, just might as well just delete them then. Delete vert, pick these 4, make a face out of it, and so on. Tedious. But you will have faces that we can connect when we are done. So even though this is the simple one, there's a ton of cleanup. It will result with fewer faces, fewer vertices than the other one that we did, right? But you still need to clean up your geometry. When you are done cleaning this geometry, come on back, and we will proceed. Then the next part is going to be for those who chose to make the complicated geometry. We're essentially going to do the same thing and be prepared for a lot more cleanup. So I'm going to save this for now. File, save. All right. And what do we got? We've got, right, 3 and our weird object in 4. So Z. And I'm going to have 3 and 4. Again, they're fairly well aligned. I'm going to take this and I'm going to, I don't know if it makes any difference. I'm going to do flat shading for now. All right, so 1, I've selected my higher poly warp end cap here. Add modifier, Boolean difference. Pick our weird looking object. Apply. And I'm gonna move this object. I don't need it anymore. I'm gonna move it off where I can find it should I require it again. Now, oh, that's interesting. That did not happen to me before. We've got, it couldn't keep it as a solid object. That's interesting. Our front faces are gone. We'll have to reconstruct it just like the guys who only use the boxes. Oh dear, that did not happen to me before. Why didn't that happen to me before? I'm going to try something. Control Z. I wonder. I'm going to go into my object that I have created here. I'm going to select this back half of all of my verts. Scale X 0. Grab X. I don't know if this is going to make any difference whatsoever. All right. All of my verts in my warp end cap are picked. Let's go down here to, I know I've seen this. Mesh, clean up, delete loose. Mesh, clean up. Move doubles. Wow, got rid of a lot of doubles. Mesh, clean up, fill holes. All right, tab. So in theory, we've just got a nice solid object here. Boolean difference. I'm going to pick this object now, which is squarish, and apply. Did it make the least bit of difference? I'm going to move this out of the way. Z. It did! Son of a gun! There must have been a hole somewhere. So I told it to fix holes. You saw how I had it clean up. But we've got a much nicer geometry than we had even on the lower poly thing. So, all right, let's see if we can fix some of this stuff up here. Tab, A to deselect, Z so that it's transparent. Yep, it's definitely transparent. 1. I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick the back vertices. So B, select all of these, scale X 0. All right, cool. A. This whole thing should still be smooth shaded, and I want an edge split of, say, 60 degrees. Okay. All right, I have goofed somehow, so Control Z, 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 Z. All right, I'm going to leave this because that actually looks pretty darn good. All right, forgive me, I'm going to go clean up my square box geometry. Actually, I wonder if I do the same thing on the square box geometry, I should get the same results. Hang on. Think of how I'm going to do that. Oh, yes, I can. All right, so I'm going to, is it Control H? No. Nope. Alt H. There we go. I'm going to unhide everything. 1, Z to make it transparent, A to deselect, and I'm going to pick everything forward of this line of verts. So Monarch B, X vertices, okay, cool. A to select everything, extrude, it's already in the X direction, just go out longer than the engine. A, tab, Z, we've got a nice solid object. All right, we're gonna do the same thing that we did with the complicated geometry. Select all vertices, go down here to mesh, clean up, delete loose, A to select everything again, mesh, clean up, remove doubles, mesh, clean up, and fill holes. I don't know what holes there are. All right, and I'm going to need that piece that I moved off. So let's move this to 4. All right, so layers 2, shift, left mouse click 4. If you didn't see it before, I pretty much did the same thing with this. I flattened out one side, so there's a lot of vertices on this side, but they're all scaled in the X direction. So I'm going to A, pick everything, and just, you know what, just to be on the safe side, mesh, clean up, delete loose, A, mesh, clean up, remove doubles, mesh, and this is probably the important one, clean up, fill holes. Tab, all right, so it's perfectly centered. It's right in the right place. We pick our object that we wish to retain, a solid 3D hull end cap. Modifier, Boolean, difference, select this object, apply. Let's move this out of the way, move. I don't care where I move it. Now to go around this object. Ah, much better. No cleanup necessary. That looks great. Okay, cool. Now, no matter which one you chose, we've got the same basic geometry, right? The same basic shape. And we've got something that's going to look, when you're up close, or at least medium-wise, that you've got some details there. And they're both in the same location. The main difference is the number of verts. This one is smoother, this one is a little more square, but from a certain distance it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. So we're going to deselect it, Shift A, and we're going to add a mesh. We are going to pick a UV sphere, and we're going to make some changes here. I like my sphere to appear smooth when you get close to it, so I'm going to pick 80 segments here and 40 segments here. I'm going to tell it to be smooth shading, and I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. Okay, cool. We're going to scale this down. Z. Now I'm going to leave it centered, because this is centered to this object. I'm going to grab X, move it here so that it's kind of uniformly centered on this ball. I'm going to make sure that this is bounding box center, right? Scale. That's not bad, so grab X. Okay, cool. So now, Z, if I grab this ball, what the heck, we'll make this, believe it or not, it's supposedly the same color as the hull, so I'm going to pick hull gray. That doesn't look bad. That looks very similar to what we see on the reference images that we've had up until now. I'm going to delete the color on here. I'm going to make that dark gray again. Yeah, I guess it always was. Okay. So no matter which one you've got, either, let's see, I'm gonna move this ball to layer 1, and you pick whichever of these you made you're going to retain, right? I'm going to keep my smooth object. I'm going to move this one off because I don't need it. But if I go to layer 1, this is now lined up perfectly with my warp engine. It's got the ball. It's got, if you get really close, it's got that fairly smooth, regular outline. If I bring in all my cameras and everything, Shift D, move this over, center this up. All right, so if I was to render this, I'll come back when this is done. And you can see it's finishing rendering now. The lighting is not optimal yet. We don't have any textures on anything yet, but yet you can still see we have that nice smooth-ended cap. We've got the ball centered relatively where we want. We've got the waffle texture all the way around the evenly spaced all the way around the end cap. And this this is even much better than the one I've got on my ship. And the funny thing is, it was easier and faster to make. So not bad, guys. Now, I don't know if you're doing renders or not, but no matter what, at this point, you've put in so much work. I want you to go to File and Save. I do not want you to lose your work, okay? And then next time, we will do the next most complicated part of our warp engine. We're going to do the inset or the trough or the trench, whatever you want to call it, and then we'll start lining up details in there. We'll duplicate our warp engines and mirror them eventually, but you've done a great job, and don't forget to come back for the next tutorial. Talk to you all later.